So I'm here on the second on the old, which we know can be a really tough start to any round of golf. But what else do we know about this hole? Well, off the whites it's 200 yards, off of the yellows 185 yards, and off the reds it's 159 yards. We know we've got a ditch that runs down before the green and a bunker on the right hand side. Now if we were to stay with our two categories we looked at in the introduction, which is sub 15 handicap and above 15 handicap, we're going to look at a couple of different ways that you can play this, and then you can choose the one that's most appropriate to you. So the scoring average on this hole, believe it or not, for the whites is 4.07 and off the reds it's 4.61. If you haven't warmed up, it's going to be really tough to stand on here and play a shot from 185 or 200 yards. So first things first is let's make sure we really hit a few shots before going out and playing. So now we're going to head down the hole and have a look at some options that we can use in terms of our decision making, but also putting in some stats from the tour and looking at our expectations and the reality of what we actually probably can achieve on this hole. So if you're somebody that potentially finds it difficult to get over this ditch, remember off of the reds the scoring average is 4.61. So if we can get you on the green in 2 shots and take 2 putts, you're saving 0.6 of a shot in general over the field every single time you play it. Now, just because it's a par 3, I think there's often the expectation that you have to go for the green. But if it's something you struggle with, certainly in the winter, what you can even try is lay up short of it. If you can play it up to the short side of the ditch and then use your second shot to get up towards the green, it's going to be much simpler. What you've got to remember is every single time you go in the ditch and you take a drop out, you're playing your 3rd shot. So you've taken a shot and you've thrown it away. What I'd say is make sure you definitely give yourself the opportunity of trying to get on the green in 2 every single time. But also remember is it's a shorter carry down the left side, whereas when you come down here on the right, the carry gets longer as the ditch plays across. So be really careful in terms of your decision making when you decide to take the ditch on or if you play short of it. So if you happen to find yourself in the bunker, you might not think it's too bad a choice. However, you have to remember is that we're looking at averages over the whole time, over the whole year. So every single time you end up in a bunker, rather than playing off of grass, your scoring average will definitely go up. Now to put it into context, the number 1 player out of the bunkers on tour, generally each year hits it to about 6 feet on average. Now that's often Ricky Fowler or Sergio Garcia. Now if they're hitting it to, on average, 6 feet to the pin out the bunker, we also know that they don't hold every putt from 6 feet. So that's the best players in the world. So what we know is it affects their scoring average, so it's definitely going to affect ours. So it's a better miss than going in the ditch or into the water. However, there are better options. So try to avoid the bunker because every time you go in it, it's going to make your scoring average higher. So at the middle of the green, we've measured it out and it's about 14 paces wide, 14 yards wide. Now to give you an idea, on the tour, their average shots normally finish within a 10% proximity of the distance. So for instance, from a 14-yard width here, this shot would probably be from 140 yards. Now we know that the closest tee box is 159 yards away. So basically we've got 16 yards we need to work with. So even if the tour players were playing from the red tees from 160 yards, they would, on average, not hit the green every single time. Now then put that into perspective for the yellows is 185 yards, so that becomes even wider. And the whites is 200 yards, so even the tour players, their shots would finish to within about a 20-yard width. So we are taking a good few paces either side of there that's going to bring in their average shot. Now that is based on a tour player, so what we have to understand is we are not going to hit the green every time, so it's more a case of where do we look to try and miss. Okay, don't get me wrong, when you hit great shots, you've got a really good chance of getting onto the green, but it's more about damage limitation without it being too much of a negative focus as to how to improve that scoring average on the par 3. So I'm going to talk you through, if you take this green on in 1 shot, then probably the best place for you to try and aim. So we know from this green it's a very large green, but it's also got a massive tier. So what does that mean? Well, if the pin is at the back on the top level and your ball comes up short down the bottom, what I'd recommend is get the ball rolling. So if it's too far for a putt, try and get a flat-faced club, and to get the ball rolling up the green, playing more of a chip and run, we often see people pulling out the sandwich or the most lofted club first of all and playing this sort of high-flighted shot. Problem is when you're playing that into a slope on the green like this just here, if it goes high-flighted, it's going to kill it And if it doesn't make it up the hill in the summer, it's going to be faster and roll back down. In the winter, it's just going to stop and you won't be getting up. So knowing that we've got the bunker and the water hazard over on the right, it's also the furthest carry to get over that ditch, which is automatically going to add on a penalty shot. I would be recommending we need to aim down the left. Now, we've obviously got a bit of overhanging tree, so it's not a perfect situation. We know we're not always going to pull off the perfect shot, but we're looking at an average and we're looking to lower that as much as possible. We're trying to get rid of the double bogeys, rid of the fives, and giving yourself the best opportunity you can at having as many par putts as possible. Or if you're playing to about a 4.61 average, just trying to have as many putts for fours as possible, again to limit those fives. So playing down the left-hand side here, what it's going to do is going to give you a chip all the way down the green. The green is wide, it's not going to be too difficult. You may struggle in terms of strike on here, but that's coaching opportunities that we can really help you through. Don't let that be a reason for you not to aim at this area. If over the year you played 100 times from here and 100 times from that bunker, I can put money on your scoring average will be lower 100% from here than if you were in that bunker. In general, be sensible, favour the left side, try to avoid all of the hazards. Think about how you can give yourself as many par putts as possible. If you're maybe in that sub 15 category, above 15 handicap, then potentially just try to think, how can I give myself as many chances for making threes or fours, but eliminating the fives?